All right, so I guess it's the next part of the whole reselling journey story, kind of a thing. And I actually want to talk about, so the last video I talked about how I ended with storage units, and it was around the COVID era, 2020-ish. And I realized actually that there were several things that I wanted to talk about that happened before that. So I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit. Sorry, my timelines get screwed up. That's just how I am. But in between doing the storage units and Amazon and all that, there was a time where, again, I tried other things out between the private labels and everything. Like I said, when it comes to reselling, you're always trying different things. You're always trying something new. You have to see what works, and what works you keep doing. What doesn't work, or what has to change, you have to change it. And so a couple of things that I always wanted to get into was, like, when I did the retail arbitrage, I always wanted to get into like bulk buys, bulk purchases. And one thing I found out what you can do is like return pallets. Again, I used to sell on Amazon. When it comes to Amazon, there's so many returns, and there can be a lot of things like that, but you can take advantage of that if you know how to. So when it comes to like return pallets and things like that, that's a category that I want to try to get into. I want to try to check it out and see what happens with it. And you can do it through a bunch of different companies. So there's like literally government liquidations, there's Amazon liquidations, the Walmarts, the Targets, all these companies, like they all have returns, right? So stuff gets returned. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces get returned every day across the country and the world. And they have to do something with these things. And if you're a big company, you're going to do what you can to recoup as much money as you can from even your losses, even when you lose money on returns. So what does that mean? That means that all these returns sit in pallets in trucks, and then they get sold to the highest bidder. That's literally what it is. So if you want to get into that kind of thing, you have to be a business entity to have a resale license and employee identification number as a business to get into a lot of those kind of things. I didn't have that, okay? So I couldn't do the actual Amazon returns, the Target returns, all those big box store returns, but it was a category I really want to try to get into. Now, looking back, obviously, the smart move would have been to form the business, have the LLC or S Corp or whatever I wanted to form, and that way I could actually do those kind of things. I wasn't that smart, and I wasn't thinking properly. I wasn't thinking long term. I was thinking short term, and I didn't do that. So I actually found out that there are places that you can do that kind of thing without resale licenses, resale certificates, and without a business entity. So the big one I went to is a place called bulk.com, bulq.com. I think the website's actually still live. I think I looked like a year ago, just for shits and giggles, like, hey, let me see if they still have things over there. And they do, and they still do business over there. And now I talked about all the Amazon returns and Target returns, all that kind of stuff. Basically what this website is, and you figure this out as you kind of deal with them, is they must buy truckloads upon truckloads upon truckloads of returns. Like you can literally buy truckloads. I think it's like 26 or 28 pallets, whatever it is, of returns. You can do that at auction. It's pretty crazy, but if you do volume, you can. And I'm pretty sure this company, what they do is they buy like literally truckloads. Then what I'm pretty sure they do is they handpick all the good stuff. They take it out, they sell it on their own. Then what's left over, they have these pallets, and they sell these pallets, not at auction. It's a listing, but it's super below retail value, if you can even say that. So what I started doing was I started researching this website because honestly, it didn't have the resale license. This is where I had to buy bulk pallets from if I wanted to. They had pallets, they had cases. So I said, let me try this out. Again, in reselling, you'd have to try things out and see how it goes. So I started off small. They had these cases that were maybe like $100. It was a big box, this big or so, nothing crazy. But you spend like $100, $150 shipped to your door, full of random returns. Uninspected returns, you can choose new stuff. So basically you can choose the category of like, is it new? Is it shelf pulls, meaning overstock, shelf pulls from a retail store? Is it uninspected returns, which mean it could be broken, could be brand new, it's totally uninspected. Or you can buy things broken or, missing parts, things like that. And you can choose the categories. You can choose, are you buying clothes? Are you buying electronics? Are you buying media? Almost anything you can think of, jewelry, health and beauty. And you can buy boxes or pallets of these things. So I started off with just a box. A couple times I bought some boxes of these things just to try it out. And it wasn't a lot of money to start. Again, you spend $150. And I tell you, they were really good. What I did was I started off buying new things just because that way I knew they were new. I could try selling them and see how it goes. Plus, I did still sell on Amazon, so I knew if this stuff was new, I could probably try to resell on Amazon. I could try at least. And those went pretty well, and I liked what I saw, so I said, let me try to upgrade it and do something different. And I bought a few pallets from this place. And the good thing, bulk.com, I liked is because you didn't need a reseller certificate, and they will deliver to a home address without like a loading dock or a lift gate. It's kind of important because I don't have a loading dock or any, anything like that. So they said drop it off like in my driveway, and they do that. I think the shipping was like $200 for a pallet. It's pretty much flat rate. So, which is not bad when you think about it. Like $200 to ship a whole pallet. Like they have to get a specific truck in a service to do that. So that was actually a good deal. $200 to ship a whole pallet, and then you spend whatever on the pallet. So I think the first few ones I did were just miscellaneous household items, like all categories. I want to see what's in there. And it was just a lot of them were manifested. So a lot of them did have manifests, some don't. And so you can see what's, for the majority, what's in there. You can kind of see it. It's not always 100% accurate. And sometimes they didn't have full manifests. So you kind of had to, like I buy my Magic collections, and you kind of have to guess on what you see kind of a thing, and you gamble on the rest. That's kind of what it was. But say you buy a pallet of used house goods for like $500, an extra $200 for shipping, you're out $700, but you got like, it could be 200 items in there, it could be 1,000 items in there. It depends on the category you're getting. I've seen pallets of just it's just laptops. It's literally 200 laptops, uninspected returns on Amazon. Are they smashed? Are they broken? Are they brand new in the box? You don't know, and the manifest won't always tell you that. So you kind of gamble on those kind of things. But it was fun. It was really cool to do it. So I did that for a little while, and maybe like a half a dozen pallets I did a great job reselling them. And I found out that the best place to sell those kind of things is actually on Mercari. So Mercari is a selling website and an app that I used pretty seriously for a while. This was probably an era, I want to say, kind of like in the beginning of the storage unit era, but towards the end of the Amazon era, but like kind of before the storage unit era. So I'm kind of like, I'm going, bad timeline here. I get it. But that's about when that was. And I saw, again, I was selling at eBay, a little on Amazon. And I started focusing on Mercari because I realized that these uninspected returns just sold really good on there. Mercari's a website. It was a good site, lower fees, very simple platform. And what I liked about it was, how sometimes if you sell like eBay or something like that, like a month down the road, they just decide to return something. It doesn't work like that on Mercari. Mercari is like, once they rate it, transaction's over. There's nothing they can do about it. And then after 3 days after it's delivered, this is before I like 3 days after it was delivered, if they didn't rate you, it was automatically rated, and the transaction was closed. That was it. So they gave the buyer a few days to respond if there was an issue, which is enough time. It really is. But then that was it, and you can move on. So when I got all these uninspected return pallets, I really started pushing this stuff on Mercari, and it was fantastic. I built a really big store really quickly, and I got a really big following very fast. And one of the pallets that I got was, it was miscellaneous things, but it had a lot of shoes in it. And so again, I was selling books on Amazon. I was doing toys on Amazon, miscellaneous things on eBay, and now had all these shoes to sell on Mercari, and they were selling really well. My cost was really low, and so I found out that they actually have full pallets on that site of just shoes. And I said, you know what? The shoes I bought from this one were working really well. Let me try to just push that and see what happens. So this started the beginning of my shoe selling journey. I felt like Al Bundy, shoe salesman. but it was funny because like the first one I bought, it was like a pallet of shoes. And I think it was maybe like, it'd be like 120 pairs of shoes. Because after like the cost of the pallet, say it was like $500, whatever it was. I forget what it was. 200 shipping, but I remember the shoes, whatever it was, the shoes basically cost me about $5 a pair. And they were, I think the first one, I don't remember if I bought new or uninspected returns, but either way, I eventually bought all uninspected returns because most of the times they were new. Think about it. If someone gets like a pair of shoes from Amazon, they comes in, they try it on. If it doesn't fit, they're gonna put it back in the box and send it back in. That's listed as uninspected. It's a return. So if they list it as, it can't be listed as new because it might have been worn. So that was all as uninspected returns. But 95% of the time, all the shoes I bought in an uninspected returns pallet were brand new. So I sold them as brand new. They were fine. It wasn't like they were messed up or anything. They were new. And so I was paying like, I think on average, like $4 or $5 for like pairs of shoes in the box, brand new. And we're talking like dress shoes, athletic shoes, cleats, like good stuff. It was like really good stuff, like actually good name brand, like women's shoes, boots, things like that. So I became like exclusively like a shoe seller. It was, again, it's the weirdest thing. Like, I don't care about shoes. I've been wearing the same type of shoes for 20 years. I'm just a simple guy. So for me to get into shoes, like I got in the books and all that, was just really weird, but it worked out good. So I got into a rhythm, and it was like, again, mostly on Mercari. I started doing about 2 pallets a week was about my average. And pretty much as soon as one pallet would come in, I would immediately go on their website, find another lot that was good, that I knew would be profitable, that was manifested and had a good price, and I could get it. And so I would order it. So while one was processing on the way, I was digging through one of them, listing them and sorting them and selling them. So as soon as I was done with that, the next pallet came in, and I just rinsed and repeat, and I kept doing it. And it's not very hard to list like a pair of shoes, especially if they're pretty much new in box. You take a few pictures, you get the measurements right, you make a good listing, and you're done. And they sold fantastic. And the best thing was, like, there were so many times where these shoes sell for like 50, 80, $100 a pair. I paid $5 for them. And so even when you had some damaged ones or whatever, it wasn't that big of a deal. Honestly, those ended up in my tag sale for like $1 or $2 a piece, and they'd move. It is what it is. So that was a lot. I did a lot of Mercari. That's when I really started getting deep on Mercari. So love that website. Like I said, absolutely loved it for the reason that it was secure as a seller, because people weren't doing some like late returns. They weren't trying to scam you. Like, once it was done, it was done. And I liked that about it. And the payouts were quick. The fees were low. It worked out fantastic for me. And so that's actually around the time when I found Auction Zip as well. You remember Auction Zip because I bought a few of my collections from Auction Zip. And it's still a website that I use today. And I randomly came across it, and because I was looking for good auction houses, and I think someone had told me about that. Another reseller actually told me about it, so I checked it out. And exploring the world of like every auction house on the planet, it's pretty awesome, because like there's so much stuff in there, and you can search for whatever you want. But ironically enough, something else I got into was autographed sports memorabilia. Again, I used to be a big sports fan. I'm a Massachusetts guy, so I was always a Red Sox fan, Bruins fan. I root for the Patriots. I don't really care about sports anymore. Ever since all those teams started winning, the tickets became expensive. I stopped going. I stopped watching sports. So I don't really watch sports anymore. I'll watch some golf. That's about it. But anyways, I digress. I got some reason, I'm not sure why. I think I was just like going through some auctions and Auction Zip. And again, this is one of those things, as a reseller, you have to take any opportunity that you can. If you see something cool, you got to go for it and try it out. And there were some auctions of like Mike Tyson signed boxing gloves. Everyone knows who Mike Tyson is. Even I don't watch boxing. I don't know who Mike Tyson is. Wayne Gretzky signed like hockey pucks, like really cool stuff. Big names of big players, and they were authenticated. They had the authentication. They had the cards with the numbers, and you can go online, look at them. They're all good. Everything was fine. And so, but the best thing was like there was so much of this stuff. It seemed like it was super saturated, but I said, I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. So I bought like, I think the first time I spent like a few $100 on maybe like 10 or dozen pieces of like sports cards. And like, I remember I did buy one of those Mike Tyson boxing gloves just because I'm like, that's pretty cool. And, stuff like that. And I started selling it on Mercari, and so just for the hell, let's see what happens. And the returns were absolutely stupid. I mean, it was literally things that you buy for $50 and sell for 300. Buy for 100, sell for 500. It was absolutely crazy. And that's what the market apparently wanted at the time. And I was able to get some super cheap, and they were good, and they were real and authenticated. It was a fantastic process. I did that for probably 6 months or so with the sports memorabilia. The only reason I stopped it was because the main auction house that I bought from stopped doing it, and so it was kind of like the faucet turned off on the supply. And then that happens a lot too with reselling, because you may have a good supplier for some product. Again, the books I bought from that Goodwill, the pallets, all of a sudden that store actually first the manager transferred to a different store, and the new manager wouldn't let me do that. And then I found where the other manager worked, that store didn't do books at all. So it was like, all of a sudden that supply just gets turned off. That happens all the time in reselling. If you have a good source, enjoy it while you can, because eventually it won't last forever. And that's what happened with the sports thing. So I enjoyed it while I could. Did great for like 6 months. Again, it's one of those, there's like a bunch of different times in a reselling career. I know for me personally, I found great avenues to buy and sell from, and like, let me just ride this and see how it goes. And you go for it as long as you can, and eventually it will just run out. I mean, unless you're like physically producing the product, which I wasn't doing. So you have to just kind of roll with the punches and do that as long as you can. But yeah, Mercari was a phenomenal site. Actually, it's funny because I tested it out maybe last year with magic cards to see how the market was on there, because there are some on there, but honestly, I like to compare when I'm looking at online listings, comparables for something that I'm going to list. I'm big on pictures, I'm big on listings and quality of listings and details. If I'm looking to buy a if I'm looking to buy a box of Shadowmoor tournament deck bricks, right? Okay, what do they cost? $700, $800, whatever they cost. Whenever I'm looking at something like that, I'm looking at not just the cheapest price. That's not the. It's one thing you look at, but you have to look at the seller you're buying from, the listing, the quality, and all that. If you had a box of Shadowmoor that someone was selling for $800 with a clear pictures of the sides and the wrappings and all that, and everything looked good, versus one that was next to it for $700 and it was blurry and you couldn't tell exactly if the plastic was intact or is that a dent in the corner or not. You're not sure. You're not going to spend money on the cheap one. You're going to make sure you get the quality one that you want. And so that's one thing that I always I noticed when I was in Mercari is that was like, I feel like that was a site for new sellers that were just trying to do something quick, not too put too much time into it. And so when I put my listings up there, they were professional listings. Like when I sold shoes on there, I mean, I had a whole lighting setup. Like I had a whole like photography setup for my pictures, because I want to make sure they're quality. And when I say like the pictures of like the shoes I took with the lighting on top of the box and like the angles, it was something that honestly, like it was something that like a store would use for like their commercial. That was my point of it. So that like mine stood out. So if my shoes were $50, they would sell before someone else is selling for 30, because they were like a dark picture. It looked like something someone took in their closet with the lights off, and it just what didn't look good. So that was a huge part too, where I learned about quality listings, especially quality pictures, more than anything. And I've always taken that, so the first few years, I'd say, where I did my listings, they were bad. I was a rookie. It was just like, here's a quick little picture of this thing, and like a 5-word description on like eBay, when you have all these, characters you can use, and you can use 12 photos, and I was using 2. If they allow 12 photos, you take 12 photos. It's as simple as that. I mean, and so when I compared the rest of the sellers versus what I was doing, it didn't even compare. So like when people were looking for shoes on, say, a Mercari, and I had like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pairs of shoes for sale. Each photo looked professional and amazing and all that, and so it was a shoe store. And I mean, I would sell multiple a day, many repeat buyers. They knew it was going to be coming from a good place, and it was quick shipping. It was safe shipping. And that's the biggest thing. And that kind of leads me into more of this point that I want to talk about for this video specifically, was the quality of photos and quality of listings and things like that. And that's something that you have to make the decision to do that. This is also where I say to people, when you're doing something, especially say you're doing a reselling business, because that's what we're talking about, you have to figure out what you want to get out of it, and what your goals are and what you're trying to do. Now, if you're just looking to sell a couple of old jerseys out of your closet and then just sell them and that's it, sure, that's fine. If you're just looking to sell a couple of booster boxes of magic cards on eBay, I get it. You're not going to take a lot of time for it. But if you're trying to build something and create something and have it grow, you have to treat it like what it is. It's a business. So you have to really know that those little differences of the pictures and the lighting and the descriptions, the details, they really do mean a lot. And it's the difference between a sale and not a sale, or it's the difference between getting a full market price for, or getting like just barely what you have. Here's a good example. Early on, when I didn't know what I was doing, I was at a tag sale, and I didn't know anything about vintage stereo equipment yet. This was my first experience with a vintage stereo piece. So if anyone knows the term Sansui, Sansui is a brand of like stereo equipment. It's high end. It's a high end brand. Sansui is very sought after. And I was at this tag sale, and there was a Sansui receiver. And I remembered the name because I saw it on some YouTube video because some reseller was talking about it. And so I remember that name, and I was at some tag sale and I saw one, and I said, how much? The guy said $1. I said, done. And now these old receivers and stereos and all that, the silver facings did better. This was more like, this wasn't one of those. It had like a wood grain top inside, but it was still a Sansui. It was still good. And I looked at the comps on eBay. I think it was like a $200 receiver in good working condition, good shape. And this was in good working condition, pretty good shape. But also, I took terrible pictures. I took pictures like on like the rug in my living room. They weren't good. You know, my details and listings were subpar at best. So this $200 receiver, I think I sold it for like 90 bucks, because I think I had it listed for like 150. And then it sat and sat and sat because I had terrible pictures. I didn't show it it wasn't powered on, so you couldn't see it. You know, I didn't fully test it. I just gave like, hey, here's what it is, here's the model number, and I gave no description whatsoever. So really at that point, it's how much is the buyer going to risk on this listing? That's what it is. Now it turns out they bought the thing for like 90 bucks. They got a great deal out of it. You know, I'm sure they were thinking the whole time it was going to be terrible, but that's the difference between if I took the time and like cleaned it real good, fully tested it, mentioned that it was fully tested, and took really, really nice photos and full descriptions, I probably would have gotten close to like the regular market value for it. But again, I was early in my selling career, totally inexperienced. And you know, as I learned, and it really was like once I got to the Mercari days and I was doing volume with the shoes, because they're very easy to take pictures of too. Again, you know, it's a size 9 black wingtip men's whatever brand, you know, dress shoe, and you can take pictures of it very easily on the box, in the box, whatever, and it's very clear of what it is. You know, you don't have to test it or anything like that. So that's where I really learned, because when I was listing, you know, 50 pairs of shoes a day or whatever it was, you know, you have to have a system. You have to have, like, you know, I had my photography set up. I had my system of, okay, you know, this, and I knew all like the 10 angles or whatever it was of all the angles I was doing. And it was a great system. It worked good. So did that for a long time, like I said, and that's the kind of thing that got me into the storage units later on. But yeah, the Mercari, and I still, like I said, I still think that's a good site. So again, the major sites being like the eBays, the Amazons, Facebook, Mercari, Etsy. I looked into Etsy, never really actually sold anything on there. I think that was more for like homemade art stuff. I think honestly, I think now it's a lot, I don't say trashier, but like I remember it being like more of like a like stuff you made at home, and like you're building your business on stuff you made. Now I feel like it's all, again, a lot of like, you know, cheaper products made from China that are brought in and just kind of like, you know, drop shipped. Drop shipping is a whole different level, another thing too, as far as reselling, that I never got into. I can cover it really quickly. I might as well, to kind of finish this video. But drop shipping is basically if you can set something up so that, let's say, what's a good example? You list something on your eBay site, okay, and someone orders it, and you then buy the product from, say they're selling it at Walmart or wherever it is, from Walmart, and then you put their information in and it ships from Walmart to them. So you're just the middleman. And generally the way that works is it's extremely small margins, but you're doing very little work. So let's say a computer chair is selling on Walmart for $100 even. So you sell yours on eBay for like $125, okay, or whatever it is. And so you sell it after your fees, you end up with like $5, $108, whatever it is. Then you buy it from Walmart, you ship it over, and you make like your $5 or $8 profit, and you walk away. And you don't have to do anything. That's what drop shipping is. The reason I didn't get into drop shipping was because I know that on eBay it was frowned upon. It was specifically one of those things that can get you kicked off. And after my scares with Amazon, I wasn't doing anything to deliberately break any rules. So I didn't want to try that. I knew there was good money in it. I knew you could make a business out of it, but I knew that it would be risky. And I never intentionally wanted to do anything that was wrong. I made mistakes, things that were wrong, but not intentionally. Like I said, like the whole IP infringement thing, just some other stupid stuff, but nothing crazy. But you never want to do anything intentionally. You want to do things, like I said, you want to grow a good reputation with your business, because you know, ideally you want to grow your business and keep growing it long term, because that's the point of it, right? I mean, if you're just in it for a quick buck, that's a different story. If you're in it to like screw people over and just get out of it, that's not building a business. That's just being a scam artist. But I believe in trying to build something long term, but you're going to make mistakes along the way. So don't do anything that is like intentionally shitty. You know, don't try to scam anybody. Don't do it like that. Like, do your best to be on the up and up as much as you can. I mean, that's, you know, that's the goal of it. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. So, like I said, after this is kind of when I got into storage units and all that, which brought me into like the COVID era. So I really want to talk about that specifically because for people that want to do that, the biggest point was like, you know, take good photographs, make good listings. If you're doing, or if you're going to be a reseller, it takes you like 3 extra seconds to take a good photograph. Just take a good photograph. I mean, if you don't have what it takes to put in work to do good photographs, do good descriptions, good listings, then don't bother reselling. Like, it's just not worth it. I mean, you know, do that, then clearly like your heart's not in it, and you don't want to do that. I get it, that's fine. Again, if you want to list a couple things to make a few extra bucks, different story. But if you want to build something, take the time, do it right. It's just the best way to do it. But also, like I said, the other big takeaway was you don't need a reseller certificate or a business entity to buy these liquidations and these bulk things. Now, back, like I said, when I did the bulk, I feel like I got in at the right time, because when I was buying from bulk.com and buying these pallets, it was incredibly lucrative, very profitable. The returns were fantastic, and there was a plentiful amount of things. I took a break from it for a little while, and then I went back like a year or two later. I think it was kind of like in the storage unit era when I was doing that, like before COVID. And I kind of, like, so I take a break and went back to it, and I looked, and like the quality of the listings on that site have really dropped. Their prices had skyrocketed, so there was no room anymore to like make a profit. Like, if you did, it was like very low ROI. When I got into it, it was like easily like triple your money on a pallet, no problem, and you do that twice a week, and like you're good, and you can make a couple $1,000s in a week profit. Just doing that kind of thing, you know. And now I think that, well, it could be a couple things. It could be the supply of the products they're getting aren't that good. It could be just their own greed of raising the prices, or it could be saturation of the market. Again, I mean, you know, I think we're in a world where a lot of people I think we're in a world where a lot of people are looking for like a side hustle. They're looking for a second gig or a second job or a little extra income, just for whatever reason. And so a lot of people go to it's a simple thing to jump into, is reselling. And I think a lot of people want to jump in and do it, but there's different ways to do it. There's right ways and there's wrong ways. And I think if you're going to do it, as I said before, I'm going to repeat myself. I know I'm a broken record, but do it the right way, and try to follow the steps the right way if you can. Reach out to people that know what they're doing. You know, rather than making a mistake, ask the question first. Sure, can you educate yourself in making a mistake? Yeah, you can, but you can also ask someone first and maybe learn before you make the mistake. And but yeah, things like that, like the bulk.com or whatever. There's other sites that do it, but that was the only one no, there was a couple more I actually tried, but they were terrible. So I stuck with the bulk one. But you can, I'm pretty sure you can go on their website right now and buy those pallets and things like that, and they'll ship it to a residential address and you can get them. But you have to be thorough. Go through the manifests, double check things, cross-reference like what's in the manifest versus like what they're actually selling for on these websites. We'll end this video with this topic because this is a big thing I bring up all the time when it comes to even magic cards and whatever, is you have to know what it's selling for, not what it's listed for. That's a big difference. You know, I can't tell you how many times, let's say, it doesn't happen as much as magic cards. It's pretty straightforward what magic cards are, but maybe older magic cards, like, it doesn't really apply as much, but let's say like there was like an older magic card, a beta mox pearl, whatever it is. Okay, a beta mox pearl, and it's like, you know, and you're trying to buy one, and like the cheapest one listed online is like $5,000, whatever it happens to be. It's $5,000, and you know, someone's gonna go, oh, it's worth $5,000, but the only ones that have sold are under 4,500. Well, then they're not worth $5,000. They're only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And I always say that something's only worth what the most recent sold is. And part of that, when it came to the bulk listings, this is pretty important because I think a lot of people got this wrong, was they would list a pallet, for example, and again, say it was shoes. So it was a pallet of shoes. It would say like, you know, original retail price, $5,000. And this pallet's only $500. You're like, holy shit, I'm getting this thing for 10 cents on the dollar. That's the like the highest original retail price it was listed for on like an Amazon, before sales, before clearance, before anything else. So if a pair of shoes was listed for $300, then it was clearanced out and sold for $50, they're saying the retail is $300. So you have to be careful with that. Like, there's a lot of things that they would hide in those pallets to jack the price up. You know, they'd be like, oh, 10 pairs of this pair of shoe, they're worth $300 a piece. So there's $300 in value of the 5,000, or $3,000 of the 5,000. And it turns out they were like just the worst pair of shoes you've ever seen in your life. There's no way someone would pay 20 bucks for them, never mind 300. So once you understood that and you can compare the prices of the actual sold listings and what's actually available in the market and like the sales velocity for certain things, then you can start to break down the numbers and actually see if it was a worthwhile pallet to go for. And that was a big part of it. And I say that too nowadays when relating to Magic the Gathering. When it comes to buying booster boxes, does the booster box have a box topper? That's added value. Are there serialized cards in the collector box? That's probably added value. There's so many things that I talk about when it comes to understanding the actual value, and there's a lot of things in Magic the Gathering with hidden values. And again, I've got ideas for videos for that down the road, but we'll get to that later. So I'll finish this up now. It's a 30-minute video, so that's good enough for now. This will basically bring us to up to the point of the storage units. Then we'll be getting to COVID after that, and that's around the start of the Magic area.